So good evening, everyone, and welcome to the 30th webinar from the Tiscon eDiscovery series. Our speaker for today is architect Piyush Kapadia. He is a part of the Pooja and Piyush Associates with over 20 years of experience in designing creative and inspiring structures. The firm strives to create high-performance, sustainable and durable structures. Pooja and Piyush have to their credit India's first sustainable residential steel building. A very warm welcome to you, Piyush, and thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you. Thank you so very much. Good evening, everybody. We are a small firm, Pooja and Piyush Associates. I graduated in 1999 from MIT Architecture, Aurangabad, and thereon we are practicing sustainable architecture with various projects, right from research centers to showrooms to tissue culture laboratories, small scale and large scale residential interiors and architectural projects. Lately, we have started with the concept of pre-engineered steel buildings, which help to sustain, which conserve a lot of natural resources. We are advocating the use of steel in construction. I take this opportunity to thank Tata Tiscon to give us the opportunity to share our works and our knowledge with you all. And it's a great pleasure to interact with you all. I would start with my webinar, which would be a continuous, I start my webinar. If there are any questions, you may please note them down in the question box. We will answer them after the webinar. If there are any unanswered questions, you may please post me or mail me on my email ID, which is arch.ppa@gmail.com, or contact me on my WhatsApp number 9822533131. Good evening, everybody. It's a pleasure to interact with you all. With negativity all around, events like this are a real boon to refresh ourselves, to stay in touch with everybody. I thank and congratulate Tata Tiscon, who has taken this initiative and created platform to initiate the dialogue. I hope we shall all surely get through these difficult times and survive to live further. I would be doing this presentation, and post that we can have a question answer session. You can post the questions in the question box. If certain questions are unanswered, you can try and you can definitely feel free to mail me on arch.ppa@gmail.com. So today the world is facing a grave situation through climate change. When I sit back, I think whether these natural disasters are a warning to mankind to live in peace with nature. Have we encroached nature and taken things for granted? Has the recent pandemic a way of healing the earth? We have somehow become ignorant about our time, about our spaces, about our places, and have forgotten our ancient basic design principles. I feel that we are living in an illusion, and this is nature's way to tell us to go slow, live minimal. It is not possible for us to have time for ourselves to experience silence. And we have learned that nothing is more important than our health and mental wellness. We need to stop treating everything like a commodity. It's a high time that we realize to live in sync with nature. The future of new architecture is of sustainable living and sustainable workspaces that promotes eco-friendly living and healthy environment. So what is sustainable? Sustainability is a very simple terms for me, is building that conserves natural resources. Sustainable is to increase light, is to enhance the air quality, is to design with healthy materials, and one that inspires everybody. Why do we need to go sustainable? According to some studies, building construction is responsible for 50% of climate change. More than 40% of energy is used by buildings globally. The buildings generate as much as 50% of construction waste that is used as landfill. Construction activity creates 23% of air pollution and pollutes 40% of drinking water, disturbs natural habitat. Moreover, the construction activities consume half of all the natural resources extracted from the nature. This means that the sustainable development cannot be done without fundamental change in which the buildings are constructed. Today, I am delighted to inform you that we at Pooja and Piyush Associates are leading our way in developing a more sustainable construction industry. Our objective is overall to reduce the carbon footprint of the buildings. Let us examine the three biggest challenges for the construction industries in India. Number one is shortage of labor. Workers in construction are aging out and retiring at a faster rate. The younger generation is not getting to come due to the urbanization, and as one is also earning the living without undergoing much hardships. The labor shortage has reduced productivity. Workers do not have the skill nor the experience needed. Contractors and builders try to do more work with fewer workers, which affect the quality of workmanship and their productivity. Second factor is safety. Number of workplaces injuries and illnesses have remained constant for years. Keeping workers safe and protecting them against accidents and injuries should be our top priority for all the business owners. Post-COVID, workers and workplaces need additional care, and their health and hygiene have become a priority. Third, what we see is the construction industry as a whole is very slow in adapting to new technologies. The companies that are early adapters and are implementing new technologies are going to have noticeable advantage over those who don't. This is all resulting in delayed construction, in increased cost, furthermore complications. So how do we build? Unfortunately, the concrete is not environmental friendly material, either to make or to use or to dispose of. A lot of energy and water is used to gain raw materials to make concrete. Quarrying of sand, aggregates causes environmental destruction and pollution. Today, we are witnessing constant delays in handing over the sites due to either labor issues or raised cost of construction or due to shortage of material supply at times. So how do we build the structure that is eco-friendly, ecological, that is sustainable, that is beneficial and non-harmful to the environment and resource efficient? Building vernacular apart from bamboo, precast concrete, reclaimed wood and adobe, steel today has emerged as a sustainable material. Presently, human civilization has entered into the fourth generation of innovation from discovery of machines in first phase, discovery of electricity in the second phase, and discovery of internet in the third phase. In the present phase, some innovations of advanced technology already popular abroad could be well suited for application to the Indian scenario. And steel concrete composite design and construction method is one such beneficial property of both steel and concrete. Here, concrete is optimally used and thereby reduces the material cost and saves construction time. Steel is one of the best materials used in construction for building to withstand extreme forces like strong winds and earthquake. In combination of concrete, steel can be used as a construction for columns, beams, deck slabs, as well as staircase to make the entire building. The reason why steel buildings are becoming number one choice for commercial construction is because they are fast, affordable, durable, and above all, extremely safe. So we see in this picture, you have the columns, beams, and the deck sheets totally in steel. Steel is tensile. It has high strength to weight ratio, which means it has high strength per unit mass. So no matter how long or large the overall structure is, the steel sections can be small and lightweight, unlike other building materials. Steel can be easily fabricated and produced massively. Steel sections can be produced off-site at shop floor and then assembled on site. This saves time and increases the efficiency of overall construction process. Structural steel is very flexible. You can mold it to any shape without changing its properties. You can convert it into sheets or turn it into wires as per the design. Structural steel is relatively cheap compared to other building materials, and hence it is very durable. It can also withstand external pressures such as earthquakes, thunderstorms, and cyclones. A well-maintained structure can last more than 60 to 80 years. We have reliability. The nature of the steel is industrial, which offers a speed in construction, uniformity, durability, high performance, elasticity, ductability, warning before failure. Steel structures are they always give a warning. They will either bend or they will sag. So they always have a warning before failure. Overall, Steel material is recyclable, so there is a recyclability factor and you always have a scrap value to it, and thus it makes sustainable and innovative advantage to all the steel structures. Sustainable construction is a part where you see the structure that is impacting social, environmental, and economic, and in all the three factors, the steel is compatible. However, there are some limitations in steel structures. We have to complete the entire planning, and an additional time goes in design. The time required to design connections is more as compared to RCC structures. Cost is high for the structural steel as compared to concrete structures. You require skilled laborers and extensive fireproofing cost is involved as steel is not fireproof. But nowadays, JSW has come up with fire retardant steel as well. In high temperature, steel loses its properties. Steel can also soft and melt with exposure to high extreme temperature. However, with additional passive protection such as spray on fireproofing, buildings built on steel structures can sustain greater temperatures and therefore provide additional safety. They are prone to corrosion in humid and marine environments. Therefore, consistent maintenance is required. As the old saying, time is money, it was never true more than when we talk about the construction schedules. In any construction, economy and time are very crucial factors, and as per building needs, the method of construction is decided whether to have RCC or steel structure. I will be presenting you few case studies. The first is our own residence, Heer Radha. This is an IGBC rated, platinum rated building awarded in 2017. The house sits on a thick fabric in Aurangabad having tropical climate with long rectangle of 357 square meters with roads on north and east. It is a house for two brothers where we had to have a house that was minimal, that used innovative construction technology, where the use of material is showcased in its true form. It's ecological, sustainable, and climatically responsive. Above all, it had to represent or showcase an architect's own house. Thus, the design concept started with a search for a perfect building and a meaningful house with more meaningful spaces in search to be true and pure. We have this as a plot with two sides roads. The entire design was as per the sun path diagram, where you see the movement of the sun. The wind direction in the daytime is from the northeast, whereas in the evenings it is from the southwest. The plan was an effortless rectangle, simple rectangle with relaxed spaces and non-defining spaces. It was maximum on material, be it for construction, interior or finishing. We have a rectangle with a staircase block on the northwest side. The living or the public areas which have living rooms and kitchen and dining areas that you see in yellow on the front side on the eastern side, and the private bedrooms on the western side. The entire house has a veranda or a balcony or terrace from all the four sides. That are the green spaces or the buffer spaces which act as buffer spaces. The entire plan is a rectangle. You have the living room, dining and the kitchen on the eastern side. These are the balcony spaces and you are greeted with an open terrace. All the bedrooms are on the western side where you get the wind flow. There are no internal walls. The furniture becomes a part of the structure and it divides the spaces between the bedrooms and the living rooms. The orange blocks that you see are the hollow clay blocks and that insulate the entire house from the exterior weather conditions. In search of innovative building technologies, steel composite structure was a strong magnet, the first of its kind in this region. The conceptual development revolved around the mixed use of vernacular materials with steel composite structure. The entire structure was erected in 5 to 7 days, and later we casted the slabs on each floor. So the entire building was completed in 2.5 months. These are the few shots of the steel composite structure while the erection was happening. All the members were erected in factory and assembled on site. The speed of the building, flexibility, large spans for spaces, precision in work, conservation of natural resources of construction material, human labor and energy were few strong advantages of composite structure over the conventional ones. This is the front elevation of the entire building. These are the aluminum fins that you see in the front. This is the northeast elevation. From northwest to southeast, we have the clay blocks which insulate the entire building from harsh weathering conditions. The aluminum fins not only obstruct the view, but also create a tangible elevation. It not only offers privacy, but also reduces glare inside, reduces the radiation of the sun, and replaces conventional grills. The clay blocks are used for the external walls. They have high compressive strength, good thermal and sound insulation, 100% natural and sustainable, are durable, cost efficient, and low on maintenance. Few shots of the interiors where you see the space becomes one and interacts with the nature. This is the entrance courtyard, which brings in the light, nature inside. After designing this entire house, the innovations that we saw, we did not have any lintels or chajjas or grills. There was no false ceiling. There were minimum walls, minimum plaster, and we saved almost more than 55% of natural resources as compared to conventional RCC building. The total ventilation achieved was almost more than 86%, which saved almost 25% of electrical energy also. The second structure is the nuts and bolts house at Aurangabad again. This house was designed for a family, for a LIC agent who had bought a small plot of almost 2000 square feet in the heart of the city and wanted to build a small house with basic requirements of 3 bedrooms and a home office. The one thing that he aspired was to build fast. This house was designed for 3 floor plates of 1000 square feet with an open plan. Since the house was for an investment consultant, we proposed him to build the house in steel. Again, we followed the basic principles of climatology, north-facing plot, and with roads on 2 sides. So the sun path was like that, and the orientation of the building is towards north-south. All the eastern side, if you see the zoning here, we divided the entire building into 3 zones, the bedroom zones and the living zone in the center. The living area in the center becomes the dynamic space. Thus, there is no circulation space that is wasted. All the west is covered with services to insulate the entire building. The utility, toilets, lifts, staircases, and the toilets are placed on the west, whereas all the living areas are placed on the east to get natural light. The building is divided on 3 floor plates. On the ground floor, we have a formal living room with a home office. On the first floor, we have living room with parents' bedroom and kitchen dining. And on the second floor, we have 2 bedrooms with a family lounge. The staircase connects all the floors together with a skylight above, which exhausts all the hot air from the top. The aim was to create architecture that would offer natural and healthy living spaces, that would be maintenance free, and that would be built with maximum recyclable materials, and that would reduce the environmental impact. The main framework of the building with steel columns and beam was erected in hardly 12 to 14 hours, and the entire site was completed in 12 hours, and in the remaining 2 days the entire concreting was done. So of all the 3 floors, the concreting was done in 2 hours. Total 18 tons of steel was used, and we got almost 9 tons of steel was extra as compared to conventional structure, but we saved almost 60% of concrete and 40% of water. On day 1, the plinth was erected. On day 1, you see the entire structure erected. On day 3, the entire structure was erected, including the deck sheets. And after 8 days, the entire structure was completed, including the slab. The use of composite deck slab was used here, unlike the previous residence, which was built almost 8 years back. So here we incorporated the use of deck sheets, which offered speed. It was light in weight, and thus the weight of the building was also reduced. It created less waste and overall cost effective. Connection details of the structures were worked out in detail and were incorporated looking at the interiors as well. This was the first ever structure again built in our region, and the design was again truthful. The design language was to create architecture that showcases its true form, whether it was color, texture, without adding any artificial layer. The clay and the steel with wooden luvers and green plants complemented each other and added a new vocabulary to the building. The external walls were again designed with hollow clay blocks that created temperature difference of almost 5 to 7 degrees, keeping the interior cool in the summer and warm in winter. The vertical pattern of the blocks gave rich character to both interiors and the exteriors. The conventional grills were replaced by salvaged wooden louvers that helped to regulate the light and connected you to the nature. The interiors were designed with color palette of natural materials. The terracotta walls, exposed deck floor with rafters in ceiling, leather finished Jaisalmer floor all showcase the concept of the design to build and be pure. The furniture units were made out of MDF and PVC ply and painted in white and grey tones. The open well staircase connected all the 4 floors, and the green envelope added a unique character to the building, promoting eco-friendly and sustainable way, offering a healthy lifestyle to the occupants. I would showcase you few ongoing projects now. If time permits, I would showcase you the time-lapse video of the bungalow that we erected, this nuts and bolts house. This is a residential and commercial building at Bajrang Chowk. This is again, the 2 floors are commercial while the 2 floors above are residential. This is the ongoing site in Aurangabad itself. This is again almost on the same lines and same principles of the 2 houses. The 5 floor slabs that you see here are casted in a single day. This is the Mishrikotka's villa at Devalgaon Raja. This is almost a 15,000 square feet residence, but here the client did not want the steel structure to be seen. Now what we have done here is all the external walls are in AAC blocks, aerated concrete blocks, and we have cavity walls, and the entire steel sections are sandwiched between the entire structure. This is the plan where you have the living areas in the front and the private areas on the rear side, and in the center you have a courtyard and a puja room. On the first floor we have 2 bedrooms with a home theater and a guest room with terraces, and on the top floor we have another daughter's bedroom. This entire structure again was erected in 2 weeks. The top floor has sloping roof with Mangalore tiles on it. Here you see the cavity wall in between which insulate the entire house, and this is how the entire steel is enclosed, protecting it from all the weather and not giving an industrial look to the entire building. This was like a villa. The entire design is as per the villa concept. We also did few projects. One of them was a labor quarters at Gangapur. So this was erected in almost 1.5 days. The entire steel that was used was hardly 3 tons, and we were able to construct almost 8 units. And after seeing at the development, the client ordered another bay, so we had erected this bay as well. So opposite to each other, 16 bays were all completed. So here we have all Aerocon blocks, Aerocon walls for the partitions as partitions. So all these walls, internal walls, are erected in Aerocon partition, and we have regular tin shed with a skylight here. So the entire house is ventilated. You have a kitchen, you have a OTA, the living space, and the utility and toilet on the rear side. This was a proposed commercial building at Selu during the COVID times. So the idea was to have all the commercial floors with maximum glass glazing and a corporate office on the top. So this was an ideal example where steel was exploited to its fullest use. Affordable housing for staff quarters was also worked out. Here we conserved again the entire, this is 25,000 square feet construction and saving of more than 50% of natural resources. We proposed the classrooms for Zilla Parishad schools at Satara on the same principles, where you can just create a cluster of one shell where you have a veranda and a classroom with a natural light coming inside. So for the first time, you see in the human psyche that we are adaptable to change. It would be interesting to see how we respond and how things move exciting from here and how things move and transform from here again. I hope to see a new tomorrow where we don't only design buildings, but we design communities. Let us dream to build healthy and livable cities that has clean air and less traffic, one that is easy to commute, on bicycle or by walk. Let us have more trained workers working methodically, following basic norms and safety and hygiene. Let us pledge to make our design and construction fraternity a more refined and organized industry, adapting to all sustainable practices. And let us change our preferences to the materials and act responsibly. Let us do less, reduce the carbon footprint, and have a conscious approach. If possible, I can run the video of the time lapse.
Yes, Piyush, please go ahead.
So this residence was constructed in hardly 8 days. So this was the plinth that you have erected. We have the anchor bolts already done on the site. On the first day, all the columns were erected. All the beams were also erected. Since we had two roads, there was freedom of accessing two cranes. These are the deck sheets that you lay on the structure. Circular columns were used for the structure because the entire structure was exposed. We did not want to hide the columns. We had basic reinforcement laid on the structure. Then we had electrical conduits and all service lines laid. Last 2 days were kept for alignment of the structures, strengthening, tightening. And here is the ready-mix concrete van that comes and pours concrete. So the basic advantage that you see in these kinds of structures is there is no debris on the site. There is no sand, there is no aggregate, there is no wastage of cement. The first slab is completed. Then starts the second level slab. And the entire, all the 4 level slabs were casted in hardly 3.5 hours. So the mental stress that one has to go through is very minimal. That's how the entire process was done. And in next 4 months, the entire interiors and the walls were all erected. So that's the floor plan that we see again, closer view. Those are the 3 bays. So you have a parking. These are the interior shots without any. So partitions were form of walls. These are the salvaged wooden luvers strips that we had. This luvers regulated the light again here also. Yeah, so it's time to change and adapt to sustainable ways to build. And we are doing our part one building at a time.
Thank you so much, Piyush. That has been very, very insightful. I think now we'll begin with the questions. So the first question that we have is, what is the average saving in terms of time that happens for a typical project?
I am unable to hear. What is the average?
Every time saving for a typical project. How much time do we save vis-a-vis concrete structure?
See, if you, the time duration depends on the nature of the project. What kind of project are we going to build, whether it's a commercial, residential, or institutional buildings. But yes, more than 50% or 70% of the time can be conserved. We can erect almost 6 floors or more than 20,000 square feet of space in less than 8 days. The entire erection of the building of almost 20,000 square feet with maximum 6 floors can happen in maximum of 8 to 10 days. Later on, whatever the time that you take for making walls or doing your interiors is as you do it for your regular structure. But in case of RCC structure or in case of My1 structure, almost every slab, between the two slabs, there is minimum span of 21 days. So if you are, say, for employing a highly professional agency, it would go to minimum of 6 to 8 months. So here this structure, as compared to that, is getting ready in hardly a month's time. So that's the basic advantage. And here you are not again constrained with any weathering conditions. Like in RCC, if there is a heavy rain or anything, your construction process is stopped on the site. Whereas here you can still do the entire processes because the erection time on the site is hardly 8 days. You are manufacturing the components of the building in the factory. So that's what saves a lot of time as well. But yes, for designing, as far as designing is concerned, I guess we almost take almost 2 to 3 weeks to design the entire structure in totality with respect to all details, the connection details and everything. And since it has to be all precise and all the 3D drawings are made, all the erection drawings are made, and then only the things move. In one way, there is no scope of change that you give to a client of once the design is frozen, Unlike in RCC structures, if this is a residential structure, the client always hinders or interferes into the design as in how the progress of the work happens. So here you have that as an advantage. Once you design a steel structure, you have to be very, very precise. It has to, the requirements are, the design is freezed basically, which doesn't allow the client to change or fluctuate his mind, number one. But at the same time, the steel buildings, because they offer long spans, we call them as future-proof buildings as well. If for an example, if you are building a residence, if you see the second residence that I showcased you, it has no column in between. So today it is a residence. Tomorrow, if I want to convert it into just a hall, I can easily convert it without disturbing any structural components. Unlike in RCC, where you have whether you cannot erect a wall anywhere, you need to have, see whether there is a beam or not, or all those things. And there are columns in between because the spans are smaller in RCC. So those are the advantages that you can really work with steel, and you can really save on time. In case of renovation alterations, the processes are very easy. In case of demolition, the process is very easy. So you save a lot of time when it comes to steel construction.
Oh, yes. The question is, what coating you use before encasing it inside masonry to avoid corrosion?
Yeah, the entire structure is first shot blasted in the factory before we apply any primer coat on it. All the dirt and everything is removed. Then we apply an epoxy primer, and then over it we apply an epoxy paint over it. One coat is done in the factory, and the second coat is done after the erection, after all the process is done on the site. So once the entire job is completed, then we do the entire second coat, and the coating lasts almost for 7 to 8 years. And if it is well protected, then there is no issue.
Okay. Are these buildings suitable for hilly areas? Rinki Verma is asking this question.
Yeah, they are very much suitable for hilly areas. As normally, in hilly areas, the major concern is how do you supply the material. In hilly areas, the transport is a very big issue. With respect to labor also, you don't get skilled labor over there. Also in hilly areas, you need to build retaining walls to avoid the water ingress inside the buildings. So in hilly areas, basically you can erect the structure on the stilts and let the water flow from below. So that is an advantage. You don't have civil work, unlike there is a lot of dampness issues that happens because of rains. So I guess in hilly areas, this is most suitable. The steel is also susceptible to high wind pressures in the hilly areas. So I guess working in hilly areas, steel becomes a viable option, an economical option, rather than the quality of construction is also precise and accurate, unlike in RCC structures.
Yeah. Why are the clay blocks placed vertically? Any specific reason?
We wanted to showcase clay blocks in its raw form. Clay blocks have the holes vertically. So we utilize those holes for all our services like plumbing or for electrical conduits and all those things. So, and it added basically gave a sense of proportion, a different dimension to the entire building. So that's why we just thought of using it vertically. We did not have to chisel our walls for our services. All the conduits are inlaid inside. The air conditioning conduits are also going within the holes, and that's how.
Okay. In composite steel structure, such as encased steel I section column, there is compulsory to add shear studs.
So all the deck, above the deck sheets, we have shear studs are placed, which are connected to the concrete.
Okay. How is the bonding achieved between steel columns and masonry and cracks are avoided at this location?
I mean, there are various connection details at various locations. If I have to showcase that, between the I section and the masonry, we have an elastomeric chemical, which has an elastomeric property, which is flexible in nature. So we connect the bond, the brick and the steel. Wherever there is a contact between steel and the brick, we have that chemical. So in case of thermal expansion and contraction, the chemical has that resistance to withstand those changes, and there is no crack or no water seepage inside the building.
Yeah, excuse me, everybody, we are out of time. So we'll have to end the session right now. So there are more questions coming in, but we'll be responding to you separately. In the meantime, if you have more questions, please write to us and we will get back to you. Okay. Okay. Thanks, Piyush. Thanks everyone for being such a nice audience.